This is White Plains Week, the weekly news roundup. With your moderator, John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And Peter Katz, noted broadcaster and journalist. White Plains Week, what's happened? Who are the newsmakers, and what's in store for the future? The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented Fridays at 7:30 and again on Mondays at 7 p.m. here on Channel 76. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains and Westchester, and welcome to the 16th year of White Plains Week. And it's great to begin this 16th year with breaking news and breaking Jim Benerofe. Jim, welcome back to the show. And Peter Katz, my companion since 2007, and Jim Benerofe, as we all know, has been there since the beginning of everything. Right. So anyway, let's go to the headlines.
And here are the stories for the week of January 22nd, 2016. Judge rules Common Council must vote on French-American School of New York site plan February 1st. School district projects $209.4 million budget for 2016-2017. Assessment roll of city is even at this time. School district looking ahead projects $55 million deficit, $233 million budget in 4 years. Opt-out meeting outdraws city school budget meeting. Galleria in White Plains may have a second possible developer. Simon Properties still owns the property. City Center Cinema Deluxe declared pest-free by city and National Amusements pest control experts. Janet DeFiore is confirmed by New York State Senate as Chief Justice of the New York Court of Appeals. James McCarty is appointed acting Westchester District Attorney. Dr. Corey Reynolds is selected to be School District Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. Snow event expected Saturday.
I think that's a $5 million
Yes,
school
it's a $5 million
deficit.
deficit in 5 years.
Oh.
Just wanted everybody to jump out the windows out.
I almost lost it.
It's big enough, though.
It sounded like we may get a 55-inch snowfall if you believe some of the models. But.
Well, as from what I understand from the National Weather Service forecast this morning, is that White Plains is predicted to get about 10 inches.
You know, the most interesting thing to me, John, is that there are 4 different computer models, 4 different ways of reading the same basic predictions as to what's going to happen in the atmosphere, and the snowfall totals, range from a total avalanche on top of everyone, down to maybe 3 inches. It's really interesting that as we've gotten more sophisticated in the computer age, we become less able to figure out what the weather's going to be doing in a few hours.
There's too many cooks.
Justify my error in this.
Actually, it's all Benerofe's fault for coming back to New York from that nice warm place down south.
It's all your fault. Right. But
anyway,
though, we can expect extensive use of the mayor's emergency notification system as the inches pile up and the streets close. Can we count on that, Mayor Roach?
You know what occurred to me? Yeah. This is going to be the first snowfall in 30 or 40 years that the city has had to cope without the services of Bud Nicoletti as its DPW commissioner.
The pressure is on. Pressure is on.
Well, Rick Hope now runs the
Yes,
department,
and
so he's been there for years anyway.
And the
He's a real
Nicoletti Teeny has been administered, but has it been shaken and stirred properly and administered?
No,
to the roads?
actually, most the county, the state roads, they all seem to have taken to the idea of putting down this brine solution a day or two ahead of a snowstorm. And it does work. I mean, it does delay the buildup,
For the
for a
first
while.
inch, it works.
Yeah.
But at any rate...
It's no substitute for getting out there and treating the roads and plowing the roads.
Yes. Well, anyway, we hope everybody keeps safe this weekend during this event, which may be an event or a non-event.
Or it may not be.
You never can tell. So anyway, let's go.
Hey, we had an event in court that was kind of shocking.
Absolutely.
All of a sudden.
Shocker of the week. And of course, we got a decision in the Fasney case, sort of like they say, but it is under further review.
It's a decision without being a decision.
Yes.
In a way.
Yes. Well, there are a lot of those. But anyway, this decision was handed down by Judge Joan Lefkowitz on Wednesday afternoon.
Interestingly, now it does not deal with the merits of the case. It says nothing about whether the Fasney project is good for White Plains or bad for White Plains, or whether there are things in the site plan or the environmental review that need to be changed. What it does do, it looks at procedural things, and in essence, it says that the Common Council did not do what it should have done,
which was vote on
August the 5th. on the project.
There has never been a development issue in the 35 or 40 years that I've been covering White Plains that took this long to get a decision on.
And according to Judge Lefkowitz, there's not even a decision because the Common Council did not vote on the site plan itself. When back in August, when they had their vote, they had two items on the agenda to vote on. One was the closure of Hathaway Lane, which was set up as an integral part of the site plan, and the second was on a special use permit for Fasney, so they could go ahead and build. They voted on the first, but they didn't vote on the second. And now what Judge Lefkowitz has done as a result of various things filed in court is ruled that the Common Council must vote on the special use permit site plan.
That'll be coming up
of this.
February the 1st.
She ordered that they have to vote at the earliest opportunity, but no later than the next regularly scheduled meeting, which is February 1st. And then what's really interesting to me is that she also ordered that all the parties involved in the lawsuits and the answers that were filed in her court have to appear in her court on February 11th, which is after this vote that she ordered, for a conference with the court. So I wonder what she anticipates might happen, and I wonder what she would have in mind for that conference.
So that is going to be a real interesting afternoon. A packed courtroom. No, it's in her chambers, so it's going to be a conference.
One thing that she did not do, she did not really rule on the issue which was raised as to whether the council was correct in deciding that it had to be a supermajority vote on this Fasney thing.
Well, they upheld it in the first order.
What she says, what the judge says, in essence, is that the council can decide to do that, to require a supermajority vote, or they cannot decide on a supermajority vote. It's really up to the council. That really is what she said. She would not
I think the
interpret
major
it for
point
them.
apparently that she's making is that they must give Fasney a decision whether they voted up or down. And they can't drag this out as I know Stackpole was in favor of doing, dragging the thing out as long as...
Well, actually, it's interesting, Jim, that you mentioned Stackpole, because he's mentioned in here, and there had been several, Stackpole was one of them, there have been several parties that wanted to intervene in this, and she said, in essence, you can't intervene. You're not affected by it, you have no standing here. So she threw out the attempts by third parties such as the Gedney Association to become involved.
But
in this.
on the order page, on page 17, the order says that it is further ordered that the motion of petitioner plaintiff Fasney for an order directing that the Common Council's vote must be decided by a simple majority rather than the supermajority of its members is denied. And it is denied.
She's denying it.
However,
she's saying it's up to the council to decide that, not to her to order it.
You're right, Peter, but earlier in the decision, she does mention that. It's up to the council to decide,
yes.
And here it's somewhat confusing.
There
is a thought that it says supermajority must be maintained. However, that's what does this really mean?
What it really means is that the council can't avoid voting on this.
Right.
Her major focus, really, I think, is that they must vote. They can't.
Yes.
The time is of the essence, if you want to say that.
Yeah. You know, look, I'm not an attorney. I've been told over the years by attorneys who were involved in municipal law that judges generally hate to tell local governments what to do.
Right.
So for her to actually issue an order telling the Common Council you have to vote on this, to me, and again, this is just opinion on my part, to me it says that she found a huge deficiency in the way the Common Council handled this up to this point.
The language is pretty scathing. And she also ordered that the determination of the motion of the respondent's defendants, that's the city, to dismiss the verified petition and complaint is held in abeyance, her words, pending the party's compliance with this preliminary decision, order, and judgment.
That may be what she's going to discuss with them, or one of the things that she would discuss with them at their February 11th conference, you know, whether she's going to throw out this whole matter. But again, it depends upon, I think, how the vote on February 1st comes out.
And there's a phrase she puts in earlier in the decision about the motion that should be voted on, or what is left thereof, I believe is a precise wording, which opens up some wiggle room.
Now, it's interesting.
They might change it.
The French-American school put out a news release in which they lead off, they say that this constitutes a major step forward in their efforts to build their school here in White Plains. Right. I'm not so sure that that's the case. What it does do, rather, is force the Common Council to vote on the issue before it.
Right.
They got to make a decision.
They have to make a decision.
Yes, the chairman of the FASNY Board of Trustees, Andrea Colombo, in this press release, said the school is very pleased with the decision and the court's recognition of the 5 years of study, analysis, and review that the plan had been subjected to. It's been a long and extremely thorough review with extensive public input. Simply put, the time has come to move forward with the project. We look forward to becoming part of the extensive and diverse educational opportunities for which White Plains is so well known and respected.
And you know, at the risk of dragging this out too long, I think we need to put into context.
It's gone 5 years. What's another 2 minutes?
We need to put into context something that Jim said, that in his experience of covering the city for 30, 40 years, whatever it's been, he's never seen a project approval go this long, or the quest for a project approval.
Yeah.
Now, what message does this send to anyone else who wants to come and build something in White Plains?
Well, something that we pointed out for a long time, that if you want to develop in White Plains, you have to commit a lot of resources and time. The market you think you have may be gone by the time they approve it.
What does it do to the reputation of the city? What does it do to the chances for future growth of the city? You know, what is the net effect of this whole thing that has now dragged on for so many years?
It is not good.
So what else has been going on around town, John?
very quietly on Wednesday night, the school district held their first run-through on the new budget. That is Dr. Paul Freed, the superintendent of the schools.
On the left.
Yes, and Fred Seiler, the assistant superintendent for business, on the right. And they addressed a very meager crowd of about 15 people, about 9 of whom represented the school district and the school board. So, I mean, at best, I think there are about 6 citizens that were interested in this. In the contrast, if R.K. O'Keefe can shift ahead to the 2 attendance slides. Next slide, please. That was the packed house for the budget preliminary run-through. And the next slide, is the slightly more people for an opt-out meeting, which was held at the same time over the auditorium. And this in itself was instructive.
What is the opt-out meeting for?
Well, there's an organization that has organized parents to opt out of the tests, the assessment tests in New York State last year, and they are now very unhappy with the Governor Cuomo's lip service towards reforming the test.
They're trying to
keep
keep alive the movement to keep your kids from taking the test.
Exactly, but they want to keep creating this groundswell that everybody is against the test. But I don't think it was there.
Well, if you're in favor of empty seats in an auditorium, that was a groundswell.
Well, there were not many people there, and just saying that we don't want testing, that's ridiculous. You have to have standards. Let's go to pass-fail.
John, what I still cannot wrap my arms around is what's happening in this city. Here you have in the budget meeting them saying we're running deficits as far as we can see.
Let's go back to the deficit
our
slide.
budget numbers are going to increase consistently year after year.
Yeah.
Your taxes are probably going to have to skyrocket in order to cover these deficits and these increased costs we're facing. And yet the apathy is absolutely overwhelming. And no one is interested.
And they're not really
maybe by mistake of 55 million as opposed to 5 million.
It was 5 million.
People were jumpers go to the meetings.
But they're projecting 209.4 million for next year. They're not projecting at this time any deficit. However, I believe there's going to be a tax increase, slightly more, because it depends on the assessment roll. Right now, the assessment roll is even, according to Lloyd Tash's figures.
Lloyd Tash is the city assessor.
City assessor. I was going to mention that. Everybody knows and loves Lloyd Tash. And at any rate, now if you're projecting these expenses ahead out only 4 years, and you're ballooning that budget from the 205.8 million this year all the way up to perhaps 230 million in 4 years, aren't we a little out of control here? Shouldn't we want to try to cut a little on a billion-a-year basis?
Look, John, the mysterious thing is if you look at the school enrollment increase, they project it to increase about 100 students in the next 5 years. And how can it be that an increase of 100 students equates to a budget increase of $5 million? How can that be?
Expenses increase.
Does that mean that the incremental cost per student is $50,000, which is what the increase would be, $5 million increase spread over about 100 students?
The figures just stun me because last year, the school aid, they got 2 million extra school aid, and they just spent it. They didn't use it to cut the budget. They added to the budget. Now, to my way of thinking, if you get extra money, that's a way of holding the incremental tax increases down for the populace.
Is there anything that can be done to increase interest in what's happening with the school system on the part of the population of the city? I mean, Jim, you've seen it ebb and flow over the years. There have been times when people really were interested in the school system.
Well, the only comment I would make about the price of My understanding is that private schools are spending much less per student now, or spending less per student now than the public school system is. I can't understand that. Why they can't get their economics in place.
That would be an interesting governmental survey, wouldn't it?
It would be.
Now, the other thing about this...
Speaking of economics and
I just want to get one more school thing in.
Go ahead.
They are predicting that they will have to go out for another new bond issue in 2018.
To do more work
To do
repairing
more work,
the buildings.
keeping our infrastructure going. Now, of course, they didn't say how much, because they're doing a survey of their needs now. But, I mean, that is really something to watch for.
Well,
Yeah.
it's
going to
what's
increase
going,
your debt.
where's it going on with the schools or disrepair? Was it in Detroit?
Yes, Detroit, that big story in the Times just yesterday. New
This
York
might
Times.
this might be, so to speak. I know Detroit has had trouble because of that they went through with the auto industry, but it might be just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what's going to happen with municipalities all over the country.
Might be. In the meantime, they hired a new assistant superintendent for human resources.
Yes, his name is Dr. Corey Reynolds, and he will be voted upon at the February meeting, and he is going to be taking over for resources, replacing the previous man who resigned to take the position with the Syracuse School District.
Okay. I on the matter of assessments and things like that, I had heard from a source that two developers have been in to talk to the city about the Galleria. Although the Galleria has not changed hands that we know of, that there's one proposal apparently that's been discussed, which would involve tearing down the Galleria and redeveloping the site, and a second proposal which would involve continuing to operate it as a mall but refurbishing it and bringing in some of the things that I know the mayor wanted to make it more pedestrian friendly. And more open to the street over the years. So there may be something happening there. And that of course, has been the cornerstone of the urban renewal downtown from the 70s.
Well, generally speaking, the retail business all of the United States is in trouble. They don't really know where it's going because people are buying stuff on the internet. And stores are not doing well.
But here in White Plains, places like the Galleria and every retail operation is very important because the city depends so much on sales tax revenue.
Now, what happens if Simon may sell it to a developer, the Galleria, or they may have a developer develop the Galleria when they keep the property?
There might be a partnership.
Yeah, and the developer says, I want to tear this down, put up a combination of retail and residential or hotel or whatever, and boom, it's out of commission for 4 or 5 years. That's a lot of sales tax down the drain.
If I were the city, I wouldn't want to see anything done that would take all of that retail offline for any extended
period. And you got
period.
that municipal garage, which basically serves for excess court parking during the week. That's a problem.
So some of that may go off the rolls.
It may
of its own accord.
It may go off the planning.
The city cannot control.
Yeah.
How business is going to go.
No, that's what they're starting to learn.
But they can affect it. I mean, if you have policies that drive people away from your downtown, you're going to affect the businesses in your downtown.
We should tick off the policies
but there are studies
that kill the city.
Hey, speaking of which, we haven't heard what they are doing or not doing on the red light cameras. We know that the council approved putting in those things.
Yes, well, they got a few more important things to worry about now.
Yeah.
But at any rate, the other thing about that Galleria mess is...
Well, I don't know about
well,
mess.
the Galleria uncertainty. Perhaps that's a nicer word.
Look, it's still a popular place. Some places do very good business there. Burger King is supposed to be moving in where McDonald's was. They haven't opened yet, but there's signs saying
it's about time.
Are they going to have breakfast all day?
I don't know.
However, the point I want to make is there is a survey being done on that area around the train station for $1 million, and the Galleria is right smack dab in the middle.
Of the survey area.
Shouldn't they be declaring a moratorium on any types of development?
There's
in that area
certain reasons that they can declare moratoriums, and they can only be done for limited periods of time.
So how about 9 months?
Well, they've declared a moratorium of a different sort at the city center in the movie theaters there, and that's a moratorium on mice, lice, and bed bugs.
Yeah, not allowed.
In there.
Not allowed.
Not allowed
and
anymore.
They were.
There had been a couple of women complained that there were these nasties in the movie theaters.
Claimed their children were bitten.
Yeah, and so a story came out saying that the city had actually issued a citation to the theater operator, National Amusements, and then that was denied. And National Amusements said there's nothing going on in our facility. And then the city came back and said, indeed,
we hired a pest control expert to check it out, and they
didn't find anything.
They didn't find anything. So it's you're good to go to the movies, folks, if you can get there.
Yeah, so they say in National Amusements, they brought in their own experts to look over the place. They couldn't find anything, so they say.
Right.
The problem with something like this is that it's very hard to counteract bad word of mouth affecting any kind of business.
Yes.
So we have the city now, having talked to certain members of the media about this, and saying outright there's nothing to this.
That is a liability issue if somebody gets bitten this weekend. Which, of course, wouldn't happen because there's nothing there.
There's nothing there to bite.
Nothing there at all, right. And
anyway.
Now, Janet DiFiore is moving on up to the top court in New York State.
State Senate confirmed her?
Yes.
Chief Justice? Wow. How about that?
Right, Chief Judge. And she is being replaced as Westchester County District Attorney. She resigned as soon as she was confirmed by James McCarty as acting DA, shown in the lower right.
And one of these days there's going to be an election for a new district attorney.
Yeah, in November. Thank you for adding that. So the race is on. Cast your briefs. Right. Legal briefs, of course. And the snow moon was visible yesterday afternoon in the waning daylight. And it
Look
was
at
a
that
beautiful sight.
Technicolor blue sky. Isn't that something?
Yes, and the snow is supposed to begin on
Let's
late
see.
Friday night.
It's been a great mild winter up until this point. Maybe we'll squeak through with not too much. You never know.
Well, we'll see. And good luck, Richard Hope. Right. John Bailey, Jim Benerofe, Peter Katz. Good night for White Plains Week.
White Plains Week has been a presentation of White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com, in cooperation with Channel 76. Comments may be emailed to WPCNR@AOL.com. The copyrighted print White Plains Cityscape by Leonard Weber is used courtesy of the White Plains Presbyterian Church. For information on its availability, you may contact the church at 761-8585. The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented Fridays at 7:30 and again on Mondays at 7 p.m. here on Channel 76. For White Plains Week, this is Seth Benerofe speaking.